Today's episode is brought to you by FreedomProject Academy. Looking for a K-12 classical online school built on Judeo-Christian values? FPA is enrolling now for the fall. Request your free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedom, F-O-R, school.com.
It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello everyone, welcome, and before we get started, as always, please hit that share button. That will enable us to educate more patriots around the country. Today, we kick things off with our international correspondent, Alex Newman. Alex, hello.
Great to be here. Thanks so much, Duke.
Boy, there are so many reasons to be skeptical, if not downright suspicious, if downright angry at the country of China. It's amazing to me how comfortable we are and how easily we do business with a place like that, with all the knee-taking and all the griping about American history. My God, to be in bed with a country like that. And now the latest thing, apparently the American people are on to these Confucius Institutes in American colleges, nothing more than funnels and conduits for information leaving America, going to China. Now, how are the Chinese dealing with the fact that Americans are on to what the Confucius Institutes are all about?
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible story, Duke. So they kind of got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. These Confucius Institutes have been exposed by government, by journalists, as basically little outposts of the most murderous dictatorship that's ever existed in human history. And these are outposts on college campuses across America. These are outposts in educational institutions that are, as you pointed out, sucking information out of the United States and sending it back to China. They are engaged in espionage, and also they are engaged in spreading communist Chinese propaganda. In fact, these are ideological institutes that, under the guise of teaching Chinese culture and Chinese history, are actually promoting communist Chinese propaganda, glorifying communism, glorifying the revolution, and so on. And so they got caught. And now a new report by the National Association of Scholars reveals that basically they're just rebranding. Almost 2/3 of the places where these Confucius Institutes were shut down, they now have new programs that are basically the same. They just have a new title, and of course they're accomplishing the same purpose. So it's amazing that this could be happening in America. You can just imagine America Institutes in China spreading, freedom and Christian propaganda. I mean, it's self-evidently ludicrous, and yet for some reason American colleges and universities don't seem to have any problem with a mass murdering dictatorship spreading poisonous propaganda.
Yeah, when you mentioned their hand in the cookie jar, that would be the fortune cookie jar, because apparently one of the main reasons these wonderfully Marxist and wonderfully woke universities are partnering this way with the Chinese, not because they're trying to spread love for Chinese culture, but because they're getting boatloads of money. Talk about the angle. How are the Chinese getting these schools on college campuses? How much money is taking place? What's the scoop on that?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So far, the Communist Chinese have spent, that we know of, over $150 million on these programs. So obviously the regime puts a great importance on brainwashing America's next generation of leaders. They're doing this in very sophisticated fashion. And again, they've been caught multiple times. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who was Secretary of State at the time, said that these are outposts for spreading Communist Chinese propaganda. And yet all these universities, I think only 5 of the universities that shut down the Confucius Institutes expressed concerns about the fact that a mass murdering dictatorship was using them to spread its propaganda. Most of them just shut them down because, hey, we're just going to replace them with different programs. So just like you pointed out, there's a lot of money involved here. And, for being Marxist, these college and university administrators and leaders are very, very willing to sell out their people, sell out their nation in exchange for big bucks.
I'm sure you remember about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, when we were hearing all about the Saudi Arabian Wahhabist form of Islam doing the very same thing, dumping millions and millions of dollars cash into American schools and universities to, let's just say, reclaim and to whitewash the history of Islam in American schools. And we see it with the Chinese now as well. So the question I guess I have to ask you at the end here is this openly treasonous in your mind, or is this just money-grubbing college professors who preach Marxism and want to line their pockets, or something in the middle?
Well, I think it depends on how you define treason. If you define treason in the traditional way, basically betraying your own country to its enemies during a time of conflict, this is perilously close to that line. That's not to say that every college bureaucrat who rubber stamped an application to put one of these things up there is waging war against his or her own country, or now they have new pronouns. I guess his or her is not inclusive enough. But I regard the entire educational machine as practically committing treason. Again, I'm not accusing teachers of committing treason, but I am saying that back in the 1980s, in 1983, Ronald Reagan put together the National Commission on Excellence in Education, and what they concluded was that if a hostile foreign power had imposed this educational disaster on America, we may have regarded it as an act of war. And when you look at the domestic actors who put that in place, people like John Dewey, people who were openly fond of the Soviet Union, it looks to me very much like they have betrayed their country to the interests of hostile foreign powers. And it's a very, very serious issue. It cannot be allowed to continue. And parents and taxpayers, it's going to fall on you to stop this, because your politicians and your university administrators are not going to do it.
Pretty clear that the Biden administration is not interested and actually supports these moves. Was the same true about Trump, or did the Trump administration try to at least push back a little?
The Trump administration did try very hard to rein all of this in, and it really tried to recalibrate the relationship with China on a much broader scale. But the moment the Biden administration came in, they basically reversed everything important that the Trump administration had done, including on these fronts.
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
Happy day to all you members of Team Healthy Republic. For once, I can actually say that and believe it. We've had a roller coaster this week of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start with the good.
We're coming on the air with breaking news from the Supreme Court at this hour. The justices handing down the highly anticipated ruling on abortion and the fate of the landmark Roe versus Wade decision. This is a majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito, very close to what was leaked several weeks back. The justice is saying we hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled.
Psychologists have a term called flashbulb memory, which is you remember where you are when something happened. The big deal, 9/11, Kennedy assassination. Today is the moment, right now, when we are going to learn the fate of constitutional abortion rights in America.
And political experts say the outcome could actually strengthen the acceptability of some religious practices in public schools. Here's what you need to know. This morning, in a 6-3 decision, the court's conservative majority ruled that high school football coach Joe Kennedy has a constitutional right to pray at the 50-yard line after games, along with his players and other students.
The U.S. Supreme Court has just issued a major ruling in the challenge to a New York gun law. Now, this is the most significant Second Amendment ruling in more than a decade. In a 6-3 decision, the court struck down New York's law, which places restrictions on concealed handguns. That law was enacted more than a century ago.
I see you, Supreme Court. You're out there making rulings and doing the thing you are assigned to do, as stated in the Constitution, which is to follow the Constitution. So that gets us to today's question. What do these rulings mean for the country, and how will it affect the midterms? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and please share this video because you're about to see a lot of ugly, crying babies. Not those who won't now be aborted, but all those big ugly babies who don't know how the Constitution works. And I'm counting on you to let me know who is the ugly of the ugly in this. But first, let's get to the bad, the usual political response to Roe v. Wade.
There's no point in saying good morning, because it certainly is not one.
Someone's salty, and that's probably why she took it out on a little girl. Yes, Nancy Pelosi, who always says she does things for the children, clearly elbowed the daughter of incoming Representative Mayra Flores. And you can see it clearly in the slowed version, because Nancy is all about Nancy. And that's why when something goes against what she believes, she puts in her angry teeth.
This morning, the radical Supreme Court is eviscerating Americans' rights and endangering their health and safety. But the Congress will continue to act to overcome this extremism and protect the American people.
No, they won't. They won't touch it with a 50-foot pole. And it doesn't matter because you pass your little law and then it'll be challenged again at the Supreme Court. And guess what? It's still unconstitutional. It's a state's issue, not a federal issue. So all you in California will still get your abortions and life will go on, but not for thousands of babies in California.
Today, the Republican-controlled Supreme Court has achieved their dark, extreme goal of ripping away a woman's right to make their own reproductive health decisions. Because of Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, and the Republican Party, their supermajority in the Supreme Court, American women today have less freedom than their mothers.
Oh, really? It's all the men's fault, isn't it? Like those 7, 6 of whom were white, who decided Roe v. Wade in 1973. And ironically, one of the dissenters was a man named White. I've been told this is always a bad thing, having those white cisgender men without ovaries deciding what I should do with my body, even though we can't define woman, but details. But it's this current court, the most diverse court we've ever had, the one with 3 women, who is the worst court ever. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
It's the good advice that you just didn't take. And who would have thought it figures?
Oh, the good advice that you just didn't take, and it figured mightily. If Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the notorious RBG, the saint of the left, would have just retired and gone back to her bodybuilding when she was at the ripe old age of 82 at the tail end of Joe Biden's vice presidency, the Obama presidency, then this wouldn't have happened. RBG has saved millions of lives, and we should celebrate. And also thank Orange Man Bad as well, since he was able to get 3 Supreme Court justices who were smart enough to know that Roe v. Wade was a bad ruling and should never have been a federal decision. But doddering old Joe just doesn't get that.
Today, the Supreme Court of the United States expressly took away a constitutional right from the American people that it had already recognized. They didn't limit it, they simply took it away. That's never been done to a right so important to so many Americans. But they did it. It's a sad day for the court and for the country.
But it's a great day for future life. And no, that right was never there in the first place. Because in that logic, then slaveholding was a right because of the Dred Scott v. Sanford case of 1857, where people of African descent weren't included as American citizens. Do any of us actually believe that's truth? Of course not. It's pure evil and immoral. But Joe doesn't think logically, just emotionally.
Now, with Roe gone, let's be very clear. The health and life of women in this nation are now at risk.
Clear as mud. With hyperbole like that, who needs his counterpart and her word salads? Which brings us to... Where in the world is Kamalama Lama Ding Dong? Kamalama is flying high because, yes, she inhales, but also as she travels on Air Force 2 watching the decision come down from the court. Ding Dong is so relatable and empathetic, and so she tweeted out saying, I know there are women out there who are afraid. To those of you who feel alone and scared, I want you to know the president and I are fighting for you and your rights. We are in this fight together. Even the left blue checkmark saw through that line of BS and ripped her a new one on the Twitter, actually asking what the Biden administration was going to do. They are so dumb, and they are almost as dumb as what Ding Dong said about how men will be affected by the ruling that abortion is a state's issue, not a federal one. And then her wisdom she provided for parents of the boys who may become fathers as a result of the choice sex that they have.
And when we think about it, everyone has something at risk on this. First of all, if you are a parent of sons, do think about what this means for the life of your son and what that will mean in terms of the choices he will have.
Like the choice to be a father. Yes. Thank you for that wisdom. But let's pivot for a moment to other bad topics before we come back to the ugly. And trust me, it's really ugly, so make sure you stick around in the video. Let's remember that the gas bags who've been talking here are the same ones who last year tried to tell you that life was great because the average cost of a 4th of July cookout was 16 cents less than the previous year. Wow. And, well, I mean, 16 cents less last year. Well, what about this year? It's only 17% higher than last year. You're only paying about $10 more than last year. So I hope you held on to those 16 pennies from last year. But how much will it cost you to drive to that cookout? It's time to check in.
I am President of the United States of America, and the buck stops with me.
Well, the good news is the gas prices have gone down 9 cents from last week to $4.86 per gallon, but compared to last 4th of July, it's still $1.76 more than last year when it was $3.10 per gallon. Somehow I'm guessing the White House won't be bragging about the costs this year. Anyway, Joe's too busy meeting his hero, Santa Claus. To the rest of us, that's Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But Joe doesn't know that, and as you can see, Joe's asking for a new bike since he had an incident last week with his. But hold tight. Before that handshake, we have some breaking news. Joe arrived in Munich for the 48th G7 summit and promptly was confused as to what was happening.
Breaking news from over in Munich. We are seeing President Biden arrive for his first trip to Germany as president. First Lady Dr. Jill Biden is also traveling with him. Now, during this trip, President Biden will be participating in his second G7 summit, where the war in Ukraine and economic issues are expected to be at the forefront.
What is he doing? He doesn't know. Side note, what the heck is with the sloppy look on all of the leaders of the group of 7? They're all ready to have a cocktail and sit out on the lanai in true beta male fashion. But next year, Justin Trudeau will lead the way in his pajamas. And I'm not even joking. The group might as well go that casual with how unproductive they were at this year's meetings. Anyway, we need to get to the ugly, even though we clearly have already begun. But there was plenty of ugly this week with the announcement of the Dobbs vs. Jackson Women's Health Organization case, and nowhere better to start than the drama queen herself, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who ratcheted up the rhetoric with her claims about members of the Supreme Court.
There must be consequences for such a deeply destabilizing action and hostile takeover of our democratic institutions. To allow that to stand is to allow it to happen. And what makes it particularly dangerous is that it sends a blaring signal to all future nominees that they can now lie to duly elected members of the United States Senate in order to secure Supreme Court confirmations and seats on the Supreme Court. This is what we're saying.
Do you think lying at a confirmation hearing is an impeachable offense?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. I believe lying under oath is an impeachable offense.
Oh, you do? Like the latest Supreme Court Justice nomination hearing when the nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson claimed she didn't know what a woman is?
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No.
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So
I'm not a biologist.
The meaning of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
Cool beans. But now that Roe v. Wade was overturned, did you see how quickly everyone is back to saying women's rights and not birthing people's rights? It's fun to watch. Almost as fun as watching the ladies on The View melt down, especially Karen Elaine Johnson, who goes by the name of Whoopi because she's fake and has to exert fake outrage.
Well, we were not even people
he is
in
saying
the Constitution.
Nothing is precedent anymore.
Well, you better hope that they don't come for you, Clarence, and say you should not be married to your wife who happens to be white, because they will move back. And you better hope that nobody says, you know, well, you're not in the Constitution, you're back to being a quarter of a person.
We're back to the 50s.
Because that's not going to work either.
Anyway, while Whoopi speaks to the 5 people who watch The View, Anna Kasparian speaks for the rest of the far left. As a host of The Young Turks, she is able to spout to the fellow cheers of Satan's spawns.
I don't believe in Christianity, which means that you do not get to dictate the way I live my life based on your religion. I don't care what the Bible says. You have every right in the world. All those women who identify with your religion have every right in the world to not get an abortion, to not take birth control, but they do not have the right to dictate my life and what I decide to do with my body. I don't care about your religion. I'm so tired of having nonstop conversations about what the Bible says. You live your life in the way that you interpret the Bible. Again, I don't care, but you don't get to take the Bible and tell me, well, the Bible says this in this chapter, in this verse. I don't care. I don't care. I don't believe in it. And I have the right, based on our Constitution, to not believe in it.
So does she care, or... It is a good thing she lives in America where she doesn't have to believe in the Bible, but as she said, based on the Constitution, which is exactly what the Supreme Court just did. We've come full circle now, and there is still so much more that could be said. That's why if you'd be so kind to share this video, we can keep the conversation going, and we can keep giving our F's. Faith, family, and friends. Go out there and celebrate life. Until next time, stay healthy, America.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
It's time for Trending Left. We've compiled some of the craziest stories making waves across the internet, and today we're going to start with the top story making headlines across the country, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And while some women have taken comfort screaming into the abyss, one woman in particular has some rather interesting advice to share with white women, and only white women. Get the popcorn because things are about to get wild and creepy in this video.
So we all see what has happened with this Roe versus Wade situation. Dear white women, listen. You're only playing this if you value your life, is to shut the up. Listen exclusively to Black, brown, and indigenous women, femmes, and non-men. Throw every resource you have and use your privilege to back us in every way. You are a big reason why we are in this mess. From the day Black, brown, and indigenous people made contact, were forced to interact with the colonizer, we have been fighting back. The freedoms we have now are because of our fight and struggle. And the reason why those freedoms are being taken away is because of you and yours.
I'm not supposed to talk, but I'm going to talk. So what she's saying right there is that all of you white women like moi are just evil and need to all go away. But wasn't it some white women who also helped to get women's vote? But it was also those white men who helped to, abolish slavery. And I'm confused. How are you going to handle that one, Lady in Blue? Anyway, next we're going to share a public service announcement from someone, I'm guessing who is a biological woman, but who reminds us all that no matter the gender or identity, we can all of us can get abortions. I present the voice of science.
Just a reminder, because it seems like everyone needs it, not just women get abortions, people with uteruses get abortions, trans people get abortions, trans men, non-binary people of all genders get abortions.
Yeah, I couldn't understand what was happening there. I was distracted, but whatever. You know what? Maybe it wasn't the best example of real science right there, but not to worry. we do have an actual medical student who will clear things up on this whole gender pregnancy thing. Proceed, future saver of lives. We desperately need your wisdom.
Can we please stop saying pregnant women? So I'm a third-year medical student, and all throughout medical school, I've had a ton of lectures associate pregnancy only with women and people who use she, her pronouns. And I'm just here to keep it short and sweet to say not all pregnant patients identify as women or with she, her pronouns.
I'll just say if and when, because let's be honest, she'll still get her medical license. When she gets that medical license, I will never ever be seen by her because she doesn't understand science in the least. But all right, let's put a pin in all that genders can get pregnant thing and move on to the nation's top online shopping site. Amazon, I think it's, oh wait, Amazon. Oh, sorry. Never shopped there, I don't know. Apparently, hundreds of employees have demanded that the company no longer do business in states where abortion is illegal. In fact, they have proposed 4 ideas to fight back against the tyranny and oppression that has come with allowing babies to actually live. Number 1, use Amazon's voice to denounce the decision. Number 2, allow employees of all genders the space and time to grieve, express their frustrations, and protest. Number 3, organize company-sponsored protests in support of Amazon employees. And finally, donate money to bail funds and assistance groups looking to expand abortion across the country. So basically, the inmates are demanding to run the asylum. Makes perfect sense. For the company that is Amazon, was it? Anyway, well, you know who's already one step ahead of all this. Why, it's the great controller of our lives, Google. You see, in a company email, Google will now only pay for an employee to travel to get an abortion out of state. But in the event a Googler doesn't feel safe in their current location, accommodations will be made to pay for the employee to relocate to a state with stronger leftist values. Who needs a 401k when you have these kinds of benefits? And so now we know that the West Coast, East Coast will become infiltrated even more, and all of us right in the middle can get along with our lives because we'll be allowed to live. But finally, we're going to wrap things up with a little vitamin D and a different topic. Thankfully, I have just the video to help warm those cold hearts and maybe add a little color during this time of leftist rage. Enjoy.
Hey, it's that time of year again where white people can't wait to get really tan. And y latinos también, bronceaditos, quemaditos. If you're a white person, you can't wait to get super tan and you can't say Black Lives Matter and you're not an ally and you can't stand for your Black, brown, indigenous, people of color, friends and family, then do everyone a favor and tanning is not for you. So, thank you.
Ay, caramba. That certainly did take a turn now, didn't it? Of course, I don't understand what she's saying because I'm as pasty can be, so you're welcome. But thankfully, that wraps up this segment. More craziness next time.
And that's going to do it for this show. And if you've got kids in college, don't let them be sucked into all that Chinese propaganda. I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.